Holy shit, this is so much fun! Vampire Crawlers is the official sequel or successor to Vampire Survivors, which itself already was an incredibly fun and addictive game that completely drew me in from the moment I booted it up with its creative spin on the Gauntlet formula. While its mechanics were quite simple, they worked off each other to such great effect, creating an addicting gameplay loop accompanied by some great music and a steady drip of upgrades and unlocks to deal with the hordes of enemies. It was a lot of fun and spawned a million copycats, so blatant that they even ripped off the name, though some of them did intrigue me. Karate Survivor places a focus on wushu style fighting. Vampire Hunters took the concept and put it into a first-person shooter, and Megabonk shifted the perspective into 3D and added platforming. But instead of innovating on their working and winning concept, doing the same thing as all the other companies and cashing out even more on their own game, taking it to new heights, they went a different route this time around. They kept the aesthetics and, let's call it the premise, but instead of retreading old ground with another Gauntlet-style bullet heaven, this one is a first-person RPG, a dungeon crawler, hence the name Vampire Crawlers. And as a first-person dungeon crawler, this game plays of course completely different from the first one, while still retaining the original's vibe in a sense. Where the first game was all about in-the-moment movement and timing, this one is more about strategizing, not to a huge extent, but you do have to think about which enemy to prioritize to make the most of your regeneration ability, for example, or potential resources within the level, or in what order to use your different attacks to maximize damage output, actually deal damage to the correct targets, and minimize health loss. Soon enough you get into the same flow as you have with Vampire Survivors, when you clear groups of enemies with more and more ever stronger attacks and unlock even more tools and weapons. It helps that a lot of the attacks have returned in this game and even look the part. You get your whip and your throwing knife, your axe and holy water. You fight a lot of the same enemies as in the original game and you still unlock more equipment through leveling up. And while the last one certainly feels like the, by now iconic Survivors level up mechanic, it works slightly different, mechanically. The only thing that actually stayed the same is picking a new weapon from a random selection to add it to your pool of attacks. But whereas in Vampire Survivors, picking the same weapon again on subsequent level ups upgraded it, with either a shorter cooldown, multiple projectiles or higher damage, in the new game you can actually collect multiples of any weapon. Because the battle mechanic this time around is that of a card battler. Attacks don't happen automatically, you have to pick them from a random hand each turn. Each card requires a certain amount of mana to be played, though this amount can be as low as 0. And your turn lasts as long as you have cards on your hand and enough mana to play them. Certain items you find within the level increase your hand size as well as your max mana for the current run, to make your turns last longer and get more attacks out. There's also some rare health increases, among other stat bonuses. Damage increases, splash damage, projectile amount, bonus XP, and all these effects are infinitely stackable and last throughout a whole run. So the longer a single run lasts, the stronger and more powerful you become. Though health recovery isn't really readily available, unlike the original game. So you still have to be careful when progressing and battling monsters, because the most insane strength stat isn't worth a damn if you don't have the HP to survive the next hit. There are of course ways to avoid getting hit. Certain cards provide you with armor and enemies can only attack you from the frontmost row. So either you stock up on armor cards or cards that have the knockback ability, which pushes enemies back a row. Or have some good crowd control going, so that enemies don't even make it to the front row in droves. In addition to raising all kinds of stats and building up a huge arsenal of different weapons with all their little quirks, you also find gems every now and then. Quite often actually. And these gems provide special effects to your weapons, if you slot them in. Double the damage of an attack, add a secondary damage source, provide bonus armor with each use, have you draw additional cards, increase the amount of all following projectiles. After a while it really gets insane. And on top of that, you can permanently increase all kinds of stats in between runs with gold you collected within the dungeons. Like in the original. Just look at what happens here. Now, the whole progression is less careful strategy and more a treadmill you engage with until you're strong enough for the final dungeon. But it does a good job in providing you small goals and keeping you going, and so do the little challenges along the way that unlock even more stuff you can use inside the dungeons. The game is more about all the many different tools and abilities, and the chaos they create, as well as the synergy. While the dungeons aren't all that complex, all its elements could fall under the umbrella of casual gaming, but the sheer variety of cards and upgrades keeps the exploration fresh, and the varied environments packed with a lot of visual detail help as well, and so does the music. As amazing as in the original game, and quite a few songs are remixes of the original soundtrack, so yeah, pretty darn great. What I'm trying to say is, the game is way too much fun. Different from its predecessor, but weirdly scratching the same itch. It's totally worth playing, and while it's not as cheap as the first game, it's still not any more expensive than a coffee and a bagel at Starbucks. So do yourself a favor and give it a try. And those who have a Microsoft Game Pass subscription have even more reason to play it, since it's included in the subscription. So there you go. And with this, I'm off, I guess, to play more of that game. I wish you the greatest of days, this has been Rady, and I hope to see you again on the next game.